The retail ETF, the XRT, down nearly 8% today alone and almost 40% in the last month. Steve Sadove is the former chairman and CEO of Saks. He joins us now by phone. Mr. Sadove, it's a pleasure to talk to you this evening. How bad is it going to get for retail?
Well, we're in a very difficult time for retail, and retail represents 1 out of every 4 jobs in the United States. And the consumer, which represents 2/3 of the U.S. economy, is basically shutting down in terms of other than the staples and necessities. So we're at a very difficult time. You have one after another of the retailers are essentially all closing their stores, yet they're also continuing to have a lot of costs, whether it's labor, where they're continuing to pay their employees, whether they have rent payments, or whether they have loan repayments. So if this continues for any period of time, which I believe it will, the retailers have a very, very major problem, and they have a liquidity crisis that needs to be dealt with immediately. And I'm not talking about a couple of months from now. I'm talking about within a couple of weeks.
Steve, who won't be saved with stimulus? There are a number of retailers tonight that are hurting and were hurting long before this ever happened.
Well, I think that first we've got to go through and get the dollars and liquidity to all of the retailers. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars a week that is lost because of this lack of liquidity. Of course, there's going to be winners and losers coming out on the other side. This was going on before. The highly leveraged retailers, the retailers that didn't play well in an omni-channel environment. You have a massive shift right now going on from the brick and mortar, because they're all closed, into the digital. Things like grocery, which were very tiny on a digital scale, are now getting much more in the way of digital delivery. So you're going to have these highly leveraged retailers. They're going to be the small guys. If you think about restaurants that aren't able to do delivery, some that aren't able to do delivery, small restaurants, a number of the more traditional brick and mortar retailers that don't have a digital presence that are highly leveraged. A lot of those are going to have problems. The other thing that's going on is because retailers are having trouble, they're shutting down their deliveries from their wholesalers. So because they're looking for any way that they can to conserve cash, they're cutting down deliveries. So wholesalers, the brands, are starting to feel the pinch as well. So and then you have the malls, which are also feeling that, hey, some of these brands or retailers aren't going to be making their rent payments. So you need a collaboration of the wholesalers, which are the brands, as well as the retailers, as well as the landlords, that all have to come together to solve this. And I think the government, through the Fed, needs to provide, and the regional banks need to provide liquidity. But there'll be a number of players that fall by the wayside.